Thank you so much for joining us on the very first episode of the CAL podcast. My name is Maddie Shively. I am a communications and journalism student here at Shippensburg, and I also work at the SU Raider Wellness Resource Center, and we thought it would be best if we started a series of discussions discussing our wellness and discussing different perspectives on how wellness has impacted us and just encouraging those conversations and coming together and sharing our experiences and different things like that. And that's mainly the purpose of this podcast. We're going to be discussing our own experiences. We're going to be discussing wellness and how that's impacted us. And we're going to be doing that together. It's going to be great.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun journey.
Yeah.
It's going to be a journey for sure.
Everybody.
Of course. So I thought we could go around and maybe introduce ourselves and what we're aiming to do here. So.
Yeah, I can go ahead and start.
Okay, go ahead,
Let's go around the table.
My name is Spencer Javoy. I am a senior undergraduate intern with the RAC and the wellness department. I am a social work major, and I'm just looking to provide some information and help spread awareness about wellness and about what different topics pertain to that. So I'm excited.
Spencer, I appreciate you stepping up from being the camera guy and Morning Mug with Glenda and Doug to now actually in front of the mic.
Yes,
very cool.
Yes, I was once a cameraman for a different little talk show, and I was just behind the camera, not on the camera. So this is a little new for me, but I'm excited.
Doing great.
Awesome.
Doing awesome.
One thing I want to note is kind of that I think is really cool is how these things sometimes take form. Because we talk about a lot of things, we have ideas, and we kick around, oh, it'd be cool to do this or that. And then to have it come together, because we talked about the podcast a while back, and then we kicked it to the fall, and it didn't work out in the fall. We said, let's reevaluate in the spring, and these lovely folks come into our lives with backgrounds and interests and passions about these topics, and it allows us to kind of get this off the ground. So this is our first one. A little bit nervous here, but also excited about what's going to come down the road. So
I would agree for sure. One thing I want to make clear before we kick things off is that as opposed to these incredible folks, I am not athletic oriented at all, but I'm very passionate about the subject of wellness and journalism, and I love doing things like this, and I'm very excited to hear other perspectives and see what I can contribute, and I'm just looking forward to it. I think we've got a great group here. So
great transparency.
I thought I'd just be real honest.
And you don't have to be. I mean, the podcast is really geared for student athletes and beyond.
For everybody.
All of our students here at SHIP and maybe even beyond that. But so back to introduction. So I'm Kurt, and I coordinate our wellness and alcohol and other drug programs here at SHIP. I am a SHIP alum. I have 2 degrees from SHIP, and actually kind of worked most of my working career here at SHIP in a variety of different positions, actually in our student athlete support office, in the academic success program, in our counseling center. And I guess this is almost my 6th year in the alcohol and other drugs role, and the wellness piece is newer, and we're excited to really build upon the work that a lot of folks, you guys, lots of other folks across campus are already doing with wellness, but just with the goal of maybe pulling some things together and offering some things that haven't been offered yet, or offering them in different ways or unique ways. So I also wear another hat as a part-time track coach, and I've been doing that ever since I graduated here at SHIP.
Hall of Famer here.
Hall of Famer, I was going to say.
Humble flex, yeah. Humble flex.
That was not planned. Thanks for the shouts. Thanks to you. But yeah, I'm definitely humbled and grateful to be in the Hall of Fame and had a good athletic career. But even more meaningful is my coaching career, which I still love to do, and I've been doing that since I graduated. So enough about me. So.
I didn't know that you were coaching this whole time.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm Cassie Morrow, the success coach for student athletes in the SEBA RAC here, and so like her, have 2 degrees, went to SHIP, played women's soccer, and coached for a year, and then now I'm in this role. But I'm pretty excited about this podcast because I have a strong background in mental health and advocating for self-care and things like that, and so tying that all into wellness, but also bringing in the student-athlete perspective is going to be pretty exciting.
And I'm Trajan Dinkins. I'm the director of our Catherine Hughes Seaver Raiders Academic Center for Student Athletes, where we really focus on the holistic development of our student athletes. And Kurt, and I know what he does in wellness, I've always wanted to blend both departments to see how we can help improve just the overall being of our athletes and our community too. And it's great how naturally kind of Spencer joined our team and kind of helped us kind of bring forth this opportunity. So I'm excited to shed light on wellness and its importance in everything we do.
I think it's important to pay attention to that,
Yes.
the way these things kind of like happenstance kind of unfolds and brings things to us. And there is an impermanent nature in higher ed where students graduate, so Spencer will be graduating, congratulations,
Yes.
in May,
Yeah.
but passing the baton, and the podcast will continue.
Yes.
So the CAL podcast,
Yes.
so championing our wellness,
It's an acronym.
emphasis
Yes.
on CAL,
Yeah.
because we're rural, and the CAL is
Embracing
cool, right?
ship, yeah.
We're embracing ship, so championing our wellness.
Yes, I loved it.
Yep.
So today what we're going to be talking about mainly, Cassie, I know you brought up the aspect of self-care, but we're generally going to be discussing wellness and what that's meant to all of us in the past, and how that comes into play in the different departments, and just different experiences that we've had, and sharing those. And yeah, whoever wants to go for it, what are our general definitions of wellness?
And I can start from like a student athlete perspective. I know being a former student athlete, a lot of times there was a culture of like push, you know, don't take a look at, you know, the mental health side of things, physical health, spiritual health, all of that. So it was more so you showed up and you performed on the field and then took care of everything else outside of it. And so I'm excited that, you know, getting back into this role at SHIP, seeing that it's not just about, you know, students as an athlete, it's more their holistic identity. So touching on all these different parts, because I know that was something as a student athlete I struggle with. Even as an adult, sometimes we're not in tune with what, as far as wellness, what we need to be paying attention to. So yeah, it's very important, but it's also good to break a barrier that like it is okay to, you know, need help in certain areas of your life.
And then just going off of that identity piece, I think during my time as an athlete, I struggled with my identity. I think I solely focused on my identity as an athlete, and it wasn't until I expanded that that I was able to kind of become my full self. And in this position here, I feel like I'm one of those advocates for our athletes to help them understand that they're more than just their athletic identity. But I know from my personal role, I can't give off the energy I need to our student athletes if I'm not taking care of myself. So embodying that and helping them see themselves as more than just that athletic persona, and understanding that they have to put into themselves what they put into their sport in order to accomplish far beyond what they're trying to accomplish on the field or on the court or in the pool.
Now, I can I can literally see what you all do in the RAC and how it is holistic. And sometimes people talk about that, but you don't actually see it in action. And I can see what you all do, and it's amazing. And bringing up the point of some struggles you had as a student athlete, it's kind of interesting generationally, kind of like I'm old enough that I was here like a long time ago, and there weren't really any support services. I mean, what SHIP offers now is actually pretty amazing compared to when I was here from '94 to '98. So we didn't really talk about our struggles. It wasn't, stigma was a real thing, and we probably didn't have the language to even understand if we were going through something. It was just about just keeping your nose to the grindstone and you just push forward. And I think you were here maybe kind of like almost in between kind of when I was here and kind of now. And I can almost see kind of the change start to happen where maybe your generation talked about things, but there weren't as many supports in place, or they were kind of getting to be put in place where different universities were offering different things with wellness and student athlete support. And now it's literally come full circle to where people talk about it. Stigma has been reduced, not necessarily eliminated, but certainly reduced. And I see students come to the RAC and just talk about these things. They check in. Checking in is part of the language and part of the culture. How are you doing as part of the culture? How are you feeling as part of the culture? Interdependence is part of the culture. Reaching out for help is expected, you know? So that's amazing to see. That's amazing to see. And it also reminds me that so many people on this campus are doing amazing work supporting our students.
I mean, it's been great to see the progression, because I know even when I was in school back in 19, I think it was just kind of coming into fruition about the importance of mental health. And I think now with the team, I think everybody on our team is relational. I know we take pride in building those relationships. And yeah, we had over 800 meetings, but 25% of those meetings were drop-in. Just people coming in and just talking about how they're feeling and telling us what they're going through so we can help them kind of push that needle forward. So it's been a topic that I think people are embracing and understanding the importance of it and why it's important to prioritize it too.
Absolutely.
I also think it's important that we model. So unfortunately for Traydon, he gets to see kind of the wellness piece from my end. So fortunately, so you know, all students seeing everyone's experiencing different things at different parts of their life. But you know, we're even checking in with each other each day, and sometimes it's like, hey, maybe we need to exercise some skills to take a break or you know, take care of ourselves, go for a walk, things like that. So I think we also, maybe me a lot more, but model, you know, what that looks like on in the CBRAC as well.
I think they see that too. I think just us checking in with each other and then just being able to check in with them, like whenever we see them out in the community, I think that helps. And those little moments kind of build into that big moment. This is going to be part of that big moment, I hope.
So that's a really interesting piece about like self-care and us as faculty and staff, like the people who are employed by SHIP, taking care of ourselves, right? And kind of modeling that or not even necessarily purposely modeling it, just doing it for ourselves, checking with each other. So I'm curious from a student perspective, do you see, is that visible with our faculty and staff? Do you hear them talk about that? Do like self-care, us taking care of ourselves?
From my perspective,
do you think we could do better with that, or we do a good job?
Yeah, well, from my perspective personally, I think just a few weeks that I've spent with the wellness and the RAC, I've been able to see that everything that you guys do is always geared towards helping the students, helping the athletes, helping anybody who comes along. And I didn't even recognize as a student going throughout my whole undergraduate until I started my internship how much you guys actually put in behind the scenes and actually do care about the students. And when they come along, you guys have like, you always have something for them. It's not just like, oh, you know, here's your form, keep it moving. It's always, how are you doing today? How's everything going? Is class okay? Is this, you know, you guys are always checking in on all different aspects of their lives. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even realize that teachers and faculty were doing that until like, I was like, okay, well now it's kind of me on the other end looking from behind the scenes at you guys doing all that stuff, talking to students, and you do a lot of planning and figuring out like, okay, what's the best way to help this student or this student. It's not just like, oh, that one student comes in and then they're done for that day, that one meeting. It's like, okay, now it's like, what's next for them? What are we going to do? What are we going to talk about next meeting when they come in? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that was like mind-blowing. Even in all the meetings I've been in, everything, it's like, I feel like wellness and mental health is at the forefront of every single thing that's going on around campus, because at the beginning of every meeting, we have a check-in. We have a, how are you doing? How's everything going? And before we even get into any business or any topics of importance, it's like, how are we doing today? And I know that just the other day we had a meeting in Trajan. They said that you all the time don't like to talk about yourself and how you're doing. And it's like, you gotta kind of take it. You gotta kind of take a step back and like look at yourself too, as well as everyone else. Because when you're trying to take care of everyone else all the time, then you're just gonna wear yourself down. Obviously,
it's a process. I know that's something I'm still working on. Where when I'm talking about how I'm doing, I automatically go to my team or my significant other or my sister. I go to family. So it's a journey that you're always going to take, but what you invest in yourself is going to come out and then be a production of who you want to become.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's like a motivational quote. Like I'm like feeling empowered right now.
There we go. And that's what this is about,
yeah.
Right? That's what this is about.
I'm feeling inspired. I'm ready to take on the day.
So Spencer, so bringing that up, I think about all of our amazing departments here at SHIP and the care behind the scenes that faculty and staff offer here at SHIP. And social work is pretty incredible the way, because they kind of really embody that, constantly making sure students are well and doing okay. So shout out to those guys.
Yeah. Huge shout out to the social work department. Always looking out, love that. Definitely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool.
So you didn't expect to be empowered like this already?
I'm really enjoying this. I really enjoyed just being around this department. It's not something that I would otherwise really be around if you think about it, because I don't really have any involvement in athletics. I have some friends who are student athletes, some friends who are in part of the SU marching band, but other than that, I don't. It's really interesting to immerse yourself in something that you otherwise wouldn't really have too much of a stake in, I guess. So
Sure.
This is a really cool opportunity for me. Not necessarily in the aspect of athletics, but I do have friends who I notice sometimes, and I notice this within myself as well, if they're not constantly giving everything their all and completing everything to the best of their abilities, no matter how many tasks they put on their plate, like that's how they see their validation. And I notice that within myself, and I notice that within others, and I'm like, wait a second, you know, we have to realize how much we can take and what we can accomplish and act accordingly and figure out how much we can, you know, what accommodate for ourselves and how much we know we can accomplish, rather than just being like, I think I can do this, this looks cool, I can do it. Like just constantly putting everything on their plate. And I feel like that's just it's a constant thing, seeing yourself in what you can accomplish in quantity over quality, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So just knowing how much to put on your plate and not.
Yeah, I think part of that is there's a lot of pressure as students in college to form your identity so you're prepared for outside of college. And so
Yes.
some of that is like the more things you can take in and put on is what we think is acceptable, you know, all that
Build that
pressure
resume.
that's- Yeah, exactly. And so I think it's important to switch things to like putting out quality stuff when you are in clubs, you know, things like that, versus building all these different things, because there is a lot of pressure that, you know, the former student, you students are facing that looks even more different than when I was here, that it's like this pressure to be in everything and do everything. So,
On top of classes.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's important to acknowledge just like classes in itself is something
Yeah.
that you want to be proud of, that you're, you know, navigating and getting to. And it kind of ties into, we'll see how this comes as far as our competition and the Stevie Rack, but being proud of all these small things. So we have these Post-its, and we want to encourage students to recognize all the small things that they're doing that they should be proud of, because it's not going to come down to like as much as you can fill on your resume. It's all those little pieces in between. So.
And it's really interesting to look at that from an outsider perspective. Of course, a piece of advice that my mom gives me is to talk to yourself how you would speak to your friend. And sometimes I notice, just when I look at my friends and all that they accomplish, and I'm just like, look at how accomplished you are, and they're just like, well, I missed this deadline last week, and I'm like, okay, but you're in like 87 different clubs, and you have 2 majors and 2 minors. Like, you're actually incredible, and you don't really give yourself that credit as much. And so, you know, I feel like a lot of people look at the negatives and the things that they miss sometimes, rather than everything they're doing, especially in college.
And I think about, that's great points, and I think about like folks like listening or watching this podcast and remembering that you guys are students, you know, like at the end of the day, you're going to edit the podcast, which is going to take time, you know, so it's like these things just don't appear, that there's folks, like you were saying earlier, like that there's work on the back end to go into these things. And when we talk about creating a culture of wellness, like across campus with students, faculty, and staff, I think this idea of growth should be part of that, because almost built into college is like transitioning from high school to adulthood, right? So there's that transition period where you're inevitably going to push yourself. It's kind of like athletic training. You kind of push yourself, and you kind of have to break yourself down just a little bit to get stronger. You know what I mean? Push yourself out of your comfort zone. So ideally, there should be, in an ideal world, a part of that where you like I'm going to take on some stuff, and then you have to sift through and say, well, that maybe was a little too much, or I couldn't do that as well as I wanted to, so I had to kind of cut that piece out. And that will inevitably happen, but it's all of our responsibilities to check in with folks and be like, hey, like, I noticed you took on these 10 things, like, could we help you do 6 and do them really, really well instead of doing 10? And I've been guilty of that myself. Like, I've actually this year, one of my New Year's resolutions is to like do less but do it better, you know? And feel proud of those things that I do instead of saying, man, I did all those things, but I didn't do them as well as I wanted to, you know? Because at the end of the day, I don't know, like is it good that you did the 10? If you did 6 really, really well, you might sleep better at night, so.
I think so too.
I think part of wellness is setting your boundaries. I know, Maddie, you mentioned it a few kind of minutes ago about having those boundaries. I think it's important to set a goal, and how I look at it is if you tell an athlete to jump, you don't give them parameters and they don't know the guidelines, that they're not going to do that task the right way.
Yeah.
If you set the parameters and then within those parameters you set the standards or what those boundaries are, you can help them reach that goal a little bit more efficiently.
Yep.
And I think when you kind of act outside those boundaries or outside of your comfort zone, that's when I think your performance starts to dip a little bit. So I think if you can recognize your boundaries, understand when you need to kind of conform yourself a little bit more. So instead of going for that 10 tasks a week, maybe narrow it down to 6, stay within those boundaries, and then kind of perform at your best.
Absolutely.
I was just thinking of that this morning, just kind of recognizing, I think a lot of self-care and wellness is just taking into account what you're going through in that moment, how you're feeling emotionally, physically, and acting upon that, and just being like, hey, maybe I should take it easy today. Maybe I shouldn't have the standards set as high as I normally would, and taking that into account and allowing yourself grace, allowing yourself like the space to be able to just maybe be like, you don't have to constantly be overachieving and maybe just constantly be reaching outside of your comfort zone. Maybe you do deserve to be in your comfort zone. Maybe literally. Maybe you wear sweatpants and things like that for a day, and you just take that time for yourself. You don't have to constantly be overachieving, and that's what I imagine student athletes are kind of in that mindset every day.
No, I think about what you said your mom told you, right? Which is kind of speak to yourself as though you would speak to somebody else.
We've got to have my mom on this podcast.
Yeah, honestly,
she
sounds great.
Put her on the list.
Yeah.
So when it was pretty amazing when we started to sit down and think about like what topics could we cover, who should be on the podcast. It was like, wow, like there's one after the next, after the next, after the next. So.
It was fun to brainstorm.
Yes,
yeah,
for
and
sure.
it just kept coming up.
I'm telling you, every person I've told about the podcast says to me, oh, I got something I can come on and talk about. I got something I can come on. I'm like, listen, there's not enough space for that many people, honestly. I don't even know if we're going to have that much time, but maybe in the future. Maybe in a future episode. But.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the great thing with podcasts. There's no cap. You kind of create your own cap, and you can record as much as you want and then roll stuff out throughout the year. So that's what I'm most excited about for this opportunity.
So many experiences to hear about. It's really exciting. And perspectives.
You mentioned kind of, I forget what you said, but kind of getting to know yourself. And I do think that's a big part of wellness, at least for me, is like that insight, like knowing yourself, your limitations, your motivation, what's too much, what's not enough, where to go if you need some help, you know, just kind of. And so I think a big part of a culture of wellness, and at least in my mind, would be allowing us to talk about having time to slow down and have a little bit of insight, and maybe getting feedback from others on, like, how am I doing? Like, what are you seeing, you know? Because I think for me, you know, we talk about this journey of wellness, probably as a student, I wasn't incredibly self-aware. I mean, I was, but not really, if you know what I mean. I probably didn't know that I was doing too much, or I probably didn't know I was overtraining, or didn't know that the balance of my life wasn't exactly perfect, because it wasn't something I thought about. You know, it was more so like, better go to class, better go to practice, better get my work done.
Yeah, because maybe you didn't have those people in your life being like, hey, maybe you should like take it easy.
Yeah, and it wasn't part of the culture.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
People would
so.
always check in how your game was. For me, especially,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah,
how's
yeah.
your game? But it wasn't like, how are you feeling overall? Like,
Good point.
you
Yes.
know, and at that point, you're, as a student athlete, or like your body hurts. So like, it was never checking in with those and again, being self-aware too. I wanted people to ask about like how I did in the game, but it might have been more beneficial for someone to be like, how are you, like overall? I don't think we get that enough, and that kind of ties into what Kurt brought up earlier. Is like, from your perspective, like, would it be weird to see like faculty checking it, like if someone's like having a really bad day and you know you can hear them, you know, expressing like kind of what they're navigating? Like, is that weird to see? Do you see that now?
I see that sometimes. It's really not, like, it's a generational kind of thing. And it's strange to see, it varies in how different faculty members kind of approach that. I know one of the advisors for one of the student media organizations that I'm in, he recently came in and he's constantly, I don't know how he does it, but what makes him such a great advisor is how he keeps track of what each individual member is doing, whether it's like volleyball or how their families do, just small little details that they've mentioned in the past, and they're like, how's that going? And just kind of, I think him being able to remember that and keeping that in mind, it kind of, in turn, makes the person that he's speaking to kind of, oh wow, like he really remembered that, like he sees me as more of a member, he sees me as a person with a life outside of this, and so in turn I feel like I can owe him that transparency of like how I'm actually doing and how things are actually going, and I feel comfortable speaking about that with him. So he's great, and I feel like, I don't know, of course not a lot of professors like have the time to, you know, go to you after different things and being like, oh, how are you doing today? But, you know, I love going to office hours.
I think they should try.
Yeah, they should try.
It should be part of their repertoire.
Yeah.
Like, whether they have the time to do it or not, I think the attempt should be made. Do you know what I mean?
That's
like,
true.
Even if it's something small.
Right.
You know?
I think, honestly, it's not always that a professor has to remember a certain detail about you. It's just a certain thing that whatever they do, that like every time they see you, they do the same thing. Like, I have one professor who always calls me Doc. Every time I see him, because I told him one day I want to get my doctorate. So he always says, hey, how you doing, Doc? And I'm like, wow, that honestly, that one motivates me to want to keep going.
Because he believes in you.
He believes in
right.
me. And two, like, I will never forget, like, just a professor like that, being able to be that relatable and that you know, kind and helpful. And it doesn't have to be like a, oh, I remember this small thing that you have a red car or something. It can be like, oh, well, we had this fun time together at one time, so now we kind of reminisce on that, and like we look back on these little memories we made together as a professor and student in that professional relationship, in that role. And like those are the types of things that students take with them forever. They remember, they really appreciate more, and that builds the connection with the professor or whoever the faculty member is for a lot longer than just that one day or whatever it is.
And that's such a small way for him to kind of just build that repertoire with you.
Mm-hmm.
And just
I'm not sure I'm the only one he calls Doc, but I it's
So
something I remember.
I think about that, like that holistic piece or the parts of self piece, like where when that professor checks in, right? Like they recognize that you are more than that student.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're that student in that class learning that material, but you're also a student doing this other thing, or you have a family, or you have a job, or you're going through something. If they check in, I think it validates too that you're more than just that we're complex people who do a lot of things,
right.
We're not just one thing.
Yeah.
And I did have a faculty member, and it's so funny you mentioned that because 2 minutes before I thought about this, Dr. Ford, he passed away probably 20 years ago. Jack Ford, he was in geography or science. He was talking to me one time about life after school, and he mentioned like a PhD, and I was like, oh, I can never do that. I can never do that. And he said, if I can do it, you can do it. And I was like, so that made me realize I was capable of more than I thought I could accomplish, and which meant the world to me, because I never saw myself being in that realm.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Sometimes
I didn't get the
somebody-
doctorate, but still. But still.
And sometimes it takes somebody else seeing in you what you can't yet see, and sometimes that's all it takes for you to take that next step. Like I know with Cassie, I know you pour into your students the way that you wish you would have received that. Like just checking in and what you've done with our Radar Wellness Check, where you help them self-reflect. And I think the more you can self-reflect, and because that's a version of self-talk, and value yourself as much as other people value you, and not just you as a student, I think that's when you begin to take that step.
It's insight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hear the word holistic being said, and I'm going to be I don't think I fully know what the definition of that is and what that means. So if you want to talk about that for a little bit, I don't think I fully know what that means.
Sure. And I would say just like even from a student athlete perspective or like the position we're in, a lot of times you see like, for example, CBRAC is like an academic center, and so it's like we reiterate like you're not just coming in, we're not just checking your grades, we're going to touch in on all the different identity pieces that make up who you are. So like holistic would be like an overall umbrella term of like what makes each person who they are.
Okay.
So like we're looking at from like our job perspective, like looking at your career goals, personal goals, you know, goals on the field or on the court, whatever, and then just like tying that into academics afterwards. But even holistic, like just being in tune with like every aspect, where he was saying you're not just the student in the classroom. There's more to you than that one piece or that one identity. And I think this would be cool to hear from you guys too. I think like student athletes struggle with the identity of being an athlete, and then you're done. And so for you guys, like, is there like one main identity that you associate yourself with, and then you get out of college and it's like, now what?
So for me personally, I mean, I think
About to graduate.
yeah, about to graduate. There's many people that all my peers, honestly, I think can relate to this. That being a student is our identity, and I feel like being a student has been my identity since I've been, 5 years old or whatever, when I entered pre-K. So like, the experience of having an internship and working with a real field and having actual tasks that have meaning to them in everything they do, it allows me to see like I am more than just a student. I am more than just somebody practicing and learning and gaining knowledge to be able to do this profession. I'm somebody who can actually do it. So like, I think
I love that.
Yeah,
That's inspiring me.
Yeah, I definitely. I feel like honestly, just the small amount of time that I've been able to see the scope of what I would call the real world or the working world. I feel like that has been able to show me that my identity has been a student for so long, and now I'm able to like branch out. I'm doing projects. I'm doing different initiatives that allow me to show my work and show my skills in a whole different light than just a student, than just a person who's doing it for a grade or for just for practice. So like, I feel like, and just even the podcast alone will show that like this is work that we all put together and we all worked on together for an extended period of time, and now it's coming together and hopefully it turns out great. But I think that just shows like you can see your work transpire into actually something real and something like tangible that you can feel and you can do, and you can see that you're not just a student or just one person or one identity. Yeah.
And I don't want to speak for you guys, but I mean, for me, I can say that may be the most rewarding part of working in higher ed. When you think about what higher ed is and the opportunities I have in my role, my job, because it is a job, it's a career, to be able to see students come in as first years and be like,
grow.
Like, wide-eyed, not even have a clue about what 4 years down the road is going to look like, and for you to get 4 years down the road and work through lots of things to get to a point where you're like ready to launch into that next phase, and that next phase could potentially be not a student anymore. It'll be a student in some ways, or if you go to graduate school, it could be a student, but that next phase will be like graduating and not being a student athlete. There's a transition and preparing yourself for that. And one of our segments down the road, I think, is going to be focusing on transitioning out of collegiate athletics. What that looks like.
Yeah.
But even from that holistic perspective, you gave example of like a student and then working your internship. But like we are learning these other pieces, like you love the cold, and that's going to be coming up. So like, like again, the holistic is just bringing in all these different lenses, all these different angles of like who people are, and so it's just interesting because what you had said is like, I'm not just a student, I'm also, and then you go into like a professional explanation where it's like, I'm also, for me, I also love this, it's so even there, like as students, and that's just my perspective hearing it, is like you're still like your identity is still linked to like some of those pieces that we don't maybe take enough time to like get to know the other stuff. So I just thought that was interesting, and kind of ties in where he was like, I wish, more staff and faculty would take the time to note that, you play intramural dodgeball or whatever. And so, again, that identity piece is another topic. We're just finding like wellness just has so many opportunities to discuss different things, but recognizing like because we just met, but we're going to be able to see all these different identity pieces that you might not even be like able to explain, and so I just thought that was interesting.
And it doesn't stop. Like, as the oldest person in the room, I can tell you, like, your development continues as a person, thinking about who you are, your what you value, your relationships, your own wellness journey. Like we're talking about, it doesn't ever stop. Ideally.
Yeah, and I think your identity as a student grows over time. Like, you may not be a student anymore, but you're going to carry that into this next step, whatever that profession may be. A lot of the habits you've built are going to transition into that life after being a student.
Right.
And you're going to cherish all the things you've learned, all the failures, all the successes, because that's going to make you who you become. You know what I mean? So it's embracing that identity, but understanding that you're going to become more than that.
Yeah. It's hard to see as graduation comes closer into view. It's hard to see that as, it's difficult not to see it as almost a loss of identity and saying goodbye to certain things. And I'm sure athletes feel the same way, but just with all of the different groups that I'm in the newspaper, I'm with the radio station, I'm with the TV station. It's just, after spending so many hours there a week and loving it and loving my team and loving my people and working really hard to achieve one goal, like week in, week out, like on a regular basis, it's like, it almost feels like it's going to be polarizing, like just not having that, especially over break, like over winter breaks and things, I'm always writing. And so what happens when I want to write and I don't really know where I can get that out? It's kind of, it's like, wow, it's going to be something different. I know my sister recently just completed university. She just got her degree, and she was part of a sorority, and it's kind of like, you have a different thing to do, people to eat dinner with every night, and it's like, especially in college when it's like a walkable community and you're much more close-knit, and then you kind of just don't have that anymore. And so it's interesting to watch her transition. It's been fun, like, all throughout my life, seeing, like, 2 years ahead, how she's been able to go through life and kind of expect what my life would look like, but just how she's kind of dealing with that transition in her life.
It's powerful. I mean, it's making me think about the good work they do in the RAC, and how maybe some of that can be expanded to our student body in terms of like preparing to graduate. As you approach that May graduation, you're having a lot of thoughts about what's next. What am I going to do? How am I going to get a job? Am I going to miss these friends? And then there's going to be some things you kind of are looking forward to getting done with, some of the academic rigors or whatever. But it's mixed, right? And it is part of your identity, and we are complex. And you mentioned we were talking about holistic and how broad it is. And we sometimes joke around about how broad wellness is. There's these 8 dimensions that literally touch upon almost every facet of our lives. And how do you nail it down to kind of one thing? And I think it's really hard. And I applaud SHIP for carving out like a space for wellness, to call it wellness, and to pull some things together. And I'm looking forward to seeing kind of like how it grows. And this is like one part of it. But as I listen to these conversations, like, it also gives me ideas about things we can do, things we can offer, what we're doing well, what we're missing, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like one of the things I think about is in social we learn all the time about intersectionality and how people are not just made up of one specific thing or made up of one characteristic. They are just so, like, it's a whole pie with a bunch of different slices that all have different pieces, and they all come together to make the whole big pie. And so I feel like looking at, as a student, just kind of relating back to the topic, I feel like for so long I've been just like, I've thought about graduation. I think, oh yeah, it's gonna be exciting. I'm so happy, but I haven't really thought about graduating, not being in school, not going to class every day, not like getting to see my friends or whatever in class and do all that. So like, that's just like, as I'm growing and as I'm doing the internship, the internship is a good transition to what I'll be doing in the working world. So like, it's a great practice of where I can express some of my skills, but also have some leeway to be, not imperfect. I can be imperfect and still work on myself too. And so like, I feel like just that intersectionality piece shows like, I'm not just a student, I'm not just a worker, I'm not just I was an athlete, I'm not just like one thing or another. all these different things that make me up. That's why we have to go and look at the holistic approach.
Mm-hmm.
You have to like take wellness into consideration with everybody, because somebody's got something going on from one direction or another, and you have no idea what it is. So you got to be able to be sympathetic. You got to be able to be empathetic. You got to understand what is going on in people's lives, and understand that they're not just made up of one piece. They're made up of all kinds of different things. So it's not just being an athlete or just being a student or this. It's just this or that. It's all these things that come together to make you up who you are, obviously.
Yeah. And I think
So
it could do
true.
really well because this podcast is going to be open to everyone. And so I'm always thinking like from a student athlete perspective, it's like your identity is more than just a student athlete. And then you guys are sharing like, oh yeah, like a student is your own identity. And so recognizing like this is across, all colleges is finding what makes up who you are versus that one piece. And so it is awesome to hear the insight from you guys, because I'm always thinking like student athletes, like you have to think about all these different things that make up who you are. That's not just athletics. And then you guys are like, ooh, like we got to think about stuff that's not just about who you are as a student. So
There's this truth. Go ahead.
I was going to say, that's why we take that holistic approach, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So the approach we take is we pour into the different versions or different identities of our student athletes. So the first time they're hearing it isn't when they come up on senior year. So we're talking about wellness with our workshops. We're talking about leadership development and putting them in scenarios to see what they would do if they were a leader, so that when they come up on that point, they can reflect back on that instance. And that wasn't maybe something that they did, but something that we poured into them through our many different initiatives that focus on that whole being of themselves. And the same thing with the 8-dimensional model is looking at those different departments or different versions of yourself or different identities of yourself to see how you can kind of pour into each one and not just one. And then once you get to that next step, then it's focusing on that next one. So it's kind of unilateral. You got to kind of pour over the top of all of yourselves.
Mm-hmm. There's a strategy. It's called Coping Ahead, and it's from DBT, so dialectical behavioral therapy. And you had mentioned kind of anticipating graduation, anticipating retiring from sport, whether that be your choice, graduation, injury, whatever, burnout, whatever it is, get cut. There's a variety of reasons. But I think we have these anxieties that we kind of are either semi-conscious or conscious. And there's a strategy you can do where you write them down. So you purposely write down the things that you're anticipating being anxious about. And you write it down in as much detail as possible. And then you write down what you're going to do to cope in as much detail as possible. So strategies that have worked for you, strategies that you've read about, things people have mentioned to you, your resources, your personal connections. So you get super specific about all those aspects, and it's really effective at helping people manage in those situations. So it could be performance anxiety, it could be transition, it could be graduation, it could be a variety of things, coping with something that you know is like a loss, that you know is coming. So just wanted to throw that out there as a little tidbit.
It sounds awful and empowering too.
That's such a nice way to combat anxiety. It's almost like a to-do list, like just kind of thinking, like anticipating. I think that also has to do with like being in check with who you are and like anticipating how you might be feeling. Yeah. And it's just nice to have a plan and things that you can fall back on and how you can kind of combat that. And I feel like that's separating you from, okay, like for me, for instance, like I'm more than just a writer, and for other athletes, like I'm more than just an athlete. So when that aspect of my identity is not in practice anymore necessarily, like there is still me. I am still left. So yeah.
Awesome.
And I think with anxiety, there is a tendency to want to ignore it, silence it, push it aside.
Fear.
Yeah, fear. Yep. Or not knowing how to talk about it or how to deal with it. And then also, because anxiety is so talked about in our culture, I think there's maybe unconscious urge to just get rid of it. And this strategy doesn't get rid of it. It actually invites it in. It says I know this is going to happen for me. It's a normal. It's not an abnormal reaction. It's it's going to be hard graduating. It's going to be hard retiring from sport or facing the death of a parent or whatever it is. So I'm actually inviting that in and developing a plan.
Kind of takes away that unknown piece. A lot of times it stems from unknown. So when you're facing it, it's like well, what if this does happen? Then where do we go? And so you can face it head on versus, like you said, push it away. It's unknown. we don't know what's going to happen. So I love that. That's a really awesome skill that, you know,
I think
even we could,
Yeah.
you know, I think I could even benefit from
It
that.
reminds you of how many things you've gotten through too.
Yeah,
Like in the past, you know, like, oh, this is what I'm gonna do. Well, how do I know to do that? Well, I did it before in this other situation, and it
Yeah.
worked really, really well.
I think it's tough, but I think that proves that failure is part of that success journey. I think reflecting and looking back on my trials and tribulations, I think that my biggest growth spurts was when I faced, not just got through, but when I faced my opportunity of failure, because I think I grew from that. I think
100%.
exactly, persistence.
That could be a whole podcast.
Yeah,
episode.
so we're just coming up with
That,
topics now, yeah.
I could talk about that for days on end. That's so true. I feel like every pitfall I've ever had has grown me into a stronger person looking back at it, and just as long as you can derive as many lessons as you possibly can from it, that it just builds you into a better person, as if you let it, if you can learn from those things and just be like, my mistakes don't define me.
A loss is only a loss if you don't learn.
Yeah,
Boom.
That's
Boom.
right.
it's
Yeah.
so true.
Yeah.
What's that quote? It's like there's not wins or losses. There's like wins and learning or something.
Oh, yeah.
Lessons,
I forget
wins
who's,
and
yeah.
lessons or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to find that.
Mhm.
I feel like growing up, I had 3 older brothers, and they all, from the top all the way down, they've made their mistakes, and I have just been, like, since I'm the youngest, I have been just a sponge, been able to take in all these things I've seen them do,
Yeah.
right, wrong, indifferent, like everything, good or bad. I've been able to take it all in and try and incorporate that into who I am as a person and who I am as for myself. But I think that's kind of like similar to the writing things down. Like there's visualizing, just visualizing success, visualizing the previous failures and how you failed and what you can do to change it. I think like that's one of the biggest things. I've been watching a lot of TED Talks, doing a lot of research about things we can talk about here. And one of the things I come across is a sports psychologist. He talks a lot about how professional athletes, they've used visualization and they like will close their eyes, lock in and meditate and figure out, just trying to visualize exactly what's going to happen next, what the next play is going to be like. And they're not like, they're trying to focus on the future, on the positives, on things that can go right, not always everything that goes wrong. And so I feel like with that, you have to take the wins with the losses with the wins, and also like it's okay to visualizing not being successful or what life is going to be like after college or what scary things are, because you have to be able to be prepared for those kinds of things, as well as visualizing the success and the positive things as well. So I feel like
Well, you mentioned the faculty member that calls you doc, right?
Mm.
So that's almost like a, I don't know, a primer for you to visualize yourself
Yeah.
in another role,
Definitely.
being different. Like I think it takes sometimes that external voice to be like, hey, could you see yourself being different than
Mhm.
the person you are right now?
Yeah, and honestly, I love to share this story because I'm so proud of him. That's my dad, but he got his PhD at 55 years old, and
Congrats.
that just showed me.
Congratulations, Dan.
Yeah, right. That showed me forever growing up and all that it is never too late. You can never not do something that you want to do, and there's no limit to what you can do.
That's awesome.
So
That's
yeah,
beautiful.
it's cool stuff.
Kudos to him. What's
Yeah.
his name?
Harry. Harry, yes.
Shout out Harry.
Harry.
Shout out Harry.
Yeah.
Oh, he's gonna love that.
Yeah. So, story. So, recently I visited with Paul Kaiser, so the name doesn't mean anything to you all, but Paul was the track coach, men's track coach here at SHIP in the 80s, and he kind of started, we have a strong program, he kind of started that, and we've been able to continue the kind of program for years and years with a lot of success, and we joke around that the coach that went after him, and then subsequent coaches have been riding his coattails, you know.
Do we have
because
a Paul
he's-
Kaiser meet, right?
Paul Kaiser,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's where we're putting that
Yeah,
down.
I know.
And the visualization piece, like we're talking about our wellness journey, I didn't even realize that I do that so much. Like now you mention it, because it's so unconscious for me. And the reason I mentioned Paul Kaiser is because as a first-year, 18-year-old student athlete here at SHIP, he was not our coach. Like he came in and did a visualization session for us, and that was the first time I ever experienced that. And he had us do this certain protocol, and I was like, my mind was blown. I was like, wow, this is a thing. I can actually do this. And I started doing it for performance, but I do it in other ways as well. And when you can visualize, it opens up these other aspects of your mind, and it's super, super powerful. And have to just say, Paul's not doing so well right now. I just visited with him last week, and he's I hope / think he's going to recover. He's has Parkinson's and some dementia, and he fell and broke his arm, and he's not doing so well. And I'm really hoping and praying that he pulls through. But he said something so inspiring to me. He said, and he wasn't super clear. We'd have to really listen, and it wasn't super sharp. But he had said the athletes that he coached gave him more than he ever gave those athletes. And I was like, got to remember that.
Yeah.
So powerful. You know,
Wow.
such a blessing to be able to see him and hear that. So, sorry to go off on a tangent. I
That's
know
okay.
I'm between us and ChatGPT probably.
But honestly, that reminded me of my journey with kind of talking about myself and talking to myself. I think some of my biggest success or some of my proudest moments go with my team, like what you guys accomplished, what my athletes accomplished when they graduate and all that good stuff. So I felt that too. So shout out Paul Kaiser.
Vicarious,
Yeah.
you know.
And I would just add the external piece, again, with wellness, one of the things is finding out your supports. I think that's huge. Sometimes I need like someone to remind me, you know, we've gotten through something before, or, you know, you got this, or the mom. And I resonate with that too, having two little girls now. You know, I definitely like being conscious of how we speak in front of them, but really leaning on those people that are going to help, you know, get you through some of that adversity and stuff too is important, and I think is a huge topic related to wellness, because we're always talking about taking care of ourselves, but it's also okay to lean on some people, you know, throughout any kind of chapter, journey, whatever you want to call it.
I think recognizing those people are important because sometimes their voices become our self-talk. Like the amount of times I hear my mom, my dad, my coaches in my ear now, that's kind of my version of self-talk. So it's embracing who they are and maximizing that relationship for however long you can.
That's so true. I hear the saying that's like, I think the 5 people you surround yourself with is who you become most like. And so it's really important to evaluate who is in your circle and how they shape your inner monologue. So make sure those are positive people to be around.
Yeah.
Honestly,
For self-talk.
I have to give a plug for Andrew Huberman. And I don't know if you listen to Andrew Huberman, he's got one of the biggest podcasts out right now, and it is kind of about wellness, mental health, physical health. He is unbelievable. He's at Stanford. Brilliant, brilliant guy. And he just put up on social media 2 days ago his like top 9 factors that impact our mental health and wellness. And one is relationships. Like I think we really need to be purposeful about who we invite into our lives, who we surround ourselves with, also how we impact them. You know, sometimes we're not the best influence on other people, sometimes they're not the best influence on us, and I think we need to be purposeful about kind of who we surround ourselves with. The quote I always heard was, show me your 5 closest friends and I'll show you your future, which I think is so true.
Yeah.
Wow. I have one of my best friends actually. His name is Ben. He just moved to Boston just recently in the past month, and he hasn't been trying to branch out and make all these new friends and stuff. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? You got to make all these friends. You're starting a new school and all these things. And he tells me, well, honestly, I'm not trying to just become somebody I don't like. I'm not trying to become somebody who I surround myself with these people, and just because I want to have friends and want to have people around me. That's like, it's not who he is. He's trying to look for deep, meaningful connections and relationships that will be positive and impact his life in a positive way, and not just find buddies to go out and hang out and go to the bar and whatever, do whatever with. So I think that's like, it's very, and I was like, he made me take a step back and look at myself and be like, wow, well, honestly, who do I let in my circle and who are my closest people? Because I'm that guy who will just go and try and meet anybody and be nice to anybody and be cool with anybody I possibly can be. It doesn't matter what group you're a part of or what you're doing, but like, I'm always friendly, but he's like, well, I'm just trying to be more intentional about who I'm hanging around, who's in my life. And I'm like, wow, that resonates big time. You got to kind of take a step back sometimes and look at your own friend group, your own people you're surrounding yourself with, and see, are they really are they having a positive impact on my life or not? So
in college, like a residential experience is going to a new place and finding your social circle. So
definitely
being mindful, like, well, who do I want? What do I want my new friends to look like? You know, what do I want those relationships to look like? You know, who am I seeking out?
Yeah.
You know? And who's seeking me?
Yeah.
Right?
Who's seeking you?
Yeah.
I actually just wrote about this exact topic for my advice column in Slate, and just about how it's nice to enter clubs and like try to see, you know, what groups you might fit into, but after a while, you know, I've noticed in myself I might start making excuses, like maybe I'm just at a low energy today, and maybe these people, sometimes you'll be around people who don't really, might not have your best interest in mind and don't really, they might like leave you hanging, and it might not be the best, and that might even train you how you should be treated, and you might be lowering your standards. And so I feel like it's so important to recognize that, you know, being able to spend time with yourself and maybe not surrounding yourself with people who treat you that way and treat you to make you treat yourself that way. Yeah. It's better to protect your energy, I guess, and just be on your own rather than, you know, spend your time and energy on people who don't really reciprocate that.
It's like a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
I'm like, wait, we have to keep it
Yeah, like how do you
on track.
How do
But
you
yeah.
shape your perception of what healthy relationships should look like, and what you expect?
Yeah.
I'm at the table that one, yeah. Right,
Yeah.
for sure. So,
Wait,
yeah.
guys.
Definitely. Yeah. So do we want to go into the next portion?
The next
I
segment.
definitely do.
Yeah, I wanna see.
All right.
I'm beyond excited.
Yeah, me too.
I know Kurt's excited.
Had some heavy hitters today.
Yeah. So the last kind of segment we want to do here for the last few minutes of every episode when we have guests is do a portion where we incorporate ChatGPT, AI-powered question answering engine to allow us to fuel conversation and just come up with topics and ideas that allow us to take us wherever we want to go, not really in any specific direction, kind of a little bit tamed in the topics, but like mainly just allow us to enter conversation freely and talk about whatever we want.
Can I frame this just a tiny bit?
Yeah.
And just for out of transparency, this is something we talked a lot about.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know. I think it began from discussions about ChatGPT and how it can be used in some fun ways and actually very useful ways, which then kind of bled into like how's it used in higher ed, academic dishonesty, what are the pitfalls with AI, and where's our society going? So it's super deep that way. And then we kicked around like the funny aspect of like, oh, that could drive this whole podcast, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And then I said, what if we just used it as a segment, just to produce conversation and to, like Spencer said, to kind of drive it. And then we also discussed like how would that be perceived, like, and we're just being transparent that it's widely used,
Yeah.
and we are curious like where this takes us, right? And it also provides some framework, some boundaries that ChatGPT is not driving what we do, but a little segment at the end that we're having fun with. So, Spencer, what did you find in your searching?
Yeah,
I'm
so
curious.
Oh my gosh, there's so much
I know.
like being generated.
It comes up with a lot for
The
sure.
neural network is cranking.
One of the interesting, well, this one I just looked up here, and the question I asked it was, please give me questions related to perseverance, because we had a nice little conversation about perseverance earlier. And one of the things that is coming up with here is mindset and attitude, overcoming failures, external supports, cultural and social influences.
We're checking all the
Everything.
boxes.
So like we just had a ton of questions. Like we've already been talking about this for a little bit now, but I think perseverance in adversity is a big question. I think like can perseverance be cultivated through adversity, or are individuals naturally more inclined to persevere than others? So like, what is perseverance made through adversity, or is it are people more likely to persevere without adversity? Like, are they more?
Well,
I don't think so.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like
Thank
Good
you.
one. Yeah.
so you know about sorry.
No, go ahead, yeah.
You know about the marshmallow experiment?
Yes.
The
No.
famous
The
marshmallow
kids?
experiment?
No.
What?
What is
so,
that?
so those who don't know, there's this marshmallow experiment, and they essentially they record these kids, and they're usually little kids. I would say 3, 4.
I actually did this with high school students with pizza, but yeah.
So never
Applicable to all.
but they're little, right? I
Yeah,
would
and
say
the
3
yeah.
to 5 maybe. I just remember them being
Yeah.
kind of small, but not like tiny. So they'll say you can have 1 marshmallow now, but if you can wait, is it like 5 minutes or 10 minutes? Something.
It
10 minutes?
depends. Yeah, I don't know
If you
what.
can wait, we'll give you 2, and they record them. And it's
Hilarious.
actually, it's really funny. You could go to YouTube.
Oh,
The
yeah.
reactions are really funny. Like, kids will be like, for some kids it's so easy. They're just like, I'm good. 10 minutes,
I think
2
I have
marshmallows.
seen
Thank you
this
very
now,
much.
yeah.
Other
Picking
kids,
on it.
boom, 2 seconds they eat the marshmallow. They're like,
Oh,
thank you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Other kids are like, you can see them working. They're like sniffing
Smelling
the
it,
marshmallow.
right?
They're like putting their head
Taking
next
it.
to
Oh,
it,
yeah.
just waiting, and they're like physically uncomfortable. So, what they do find is those kids that can delay their gratification are successful, like longitudinally in life.
Right.
So, I don't know if that's controversial. That's what they found. So, I think the lesson is like delayed gratification, like being resilient, dealing with like you know the harder challenge rather than the easy challenge. You know.
Yeah, and I've, based off of that, we actually would watch those videos, and then I'd have high school students with pizza, the whole class. So you got a slice at the beginning, and if you held out to the end, you get a second piece.
Wow.
And at first, when we would do it, it was fine. And then the one time we had a substitute came in for the teacher that I work with, and oh man, he was like, this smells so good, and he was eating it. He was like, man, like, if only you guys could have this. And so that adversity piece is kind of real, because in that...
Was he like playing it up?
Yeah, oh yeah, so he was just sitting there like, smell the pizza, come on, this, he's like...
Yeah, my stomach's
I
growling.
will.
Yeah, I think I
because
saw
it's
And
that.
so
so
hungry.
that made a huge difference, and they're like, whatever, I just want the one piece. And, you know, doing this year after year, it was very interesting to see when, you know, we had a certain way. You get the pizza, we do the class, and then you get a second piece if you don't eat it. But then when he came in, it was a whole different story, because he was like, oh, I wish you guys could be eating this with me right now, and like, what, you know,
Wow, you're
sending the,
walking the smell,
right,
yeah,
the
right,
smells
like-
towards them. So even that's like the adversity piece, and trying to manage, like, that's frustrating when someone
Yeah.
can eat that and they can have another piece,
For
but
sure.
you
and,
can't.
And then depending on hunger levels, or
Yeah,
or
right.
maybe privilege, like if you had access to food, or,
Right, yeah.
or you know, if you just tend to eat even when you just think about food, you know,
Yeah.
that type of thing. So. Huberman actually just put up a clip which I thought was really powerful, where he talked about there is a brain portion that's devoted strictly to basically willpower. And folks who have exercised their willpower, that part of the brain grows, and they kind of take it to the next step. That those folks do better because they have like stronger will. Like they've been invited to have discipline and stronger will, and I don't know inherently, like the question was kind of, do some people just have better willpower?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I can tell you, we talked about this earlier, where I do feel strongly that like we don't want burnout. We don't want people like doing way too much. Like that's just not really healthy. But I do think we have to at least challenge ourselves, like just to see kind of like how we're doing with that development. Are we handling it? Can someone say like, hey, are you doing all right? Maybe you can ratchet this back. Because there has to be some type of leaning into it, because the opposite is like, you know, try new challenges at all. You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I've got a good story with my mom who pushed me like at a very young age to like do something I didn't want to do, and I always remember like shouts out to her for like pushing me. You know, so.
I have a story like that too, and it was young, and I think this goes into my mindset now, where first year playing football, and I was presented with an adversity or an obstacle, and at first I didn't want to do it. It was like everybody got in trouble, so they had to run a lap. I didn't want to run a lap because I didn't do anything wrong, and at this point I was learning about teamwork, and then my mom, that self-talk, was like, get up and run your lap.
Yep.
And because of me facing that, I ended up beating everybody around the track, even though they were halfway around. Every time after that, whenever I face adversity, it's gotten a little bit easier. That perseverance through that obstacle has gotten a little bit easier. So now at the point where when adversity strikes, no matter how big or small it is, I almost laugh at it now, because I know what I've been through, I know what I've gotten through, and it makes this next obstacle fun because I know I'm going to grow from that. So I think the earlier you can face some type of
Yep.
grit or obstacle or adversity, the easier it is to persevere through.
Wow.
And that support system you had to push you
Yeah.
and challenge you.
And I still hear
think
that
that's
self-talk,
so,
yeah.
so
Take
important.
that lap.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do it. And then it's like you said, like at some point it's kind of like, bring it on, I got this,
Right.
I can do this. I believe in myself.
You almost welcome it, yeah.
Yes.
Definitely. Yeah.
It's a
so-
good question. Thanks,
Great
Chad.
question.
Thanks,
Yeah.
ChatGPT.
That was a good one. Maybe we'll try one other one
Yeah, let's do
here.
one more.
Oh, okay.
This one, these are interesting. I looked up questions that would relate to human relationships, right? So I think this one's kind of interesting, relationship expectations and trust and betrayal. Those are the two different ones.
That's a
Coming
good
up on
topic.
Valentine's
That's-
Day
Holy
here.
cow.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Week to the day.
And so I'm thinking different relationships, like even at like the college setting, like if you have that trust broken with like professors or with like a certain major, things like that. But yeah, with Valentine's Day, the romantic relationship as well.
Didn't even think of that.
But
yeah.
I'm connecting like different relationships because a lot of times we hear we automatically think romantic relationship, but you know it could be related to
Yeah.
other relationships that are
all, yeah,
formed.
all different kinds of relationships,
Yeah.
coaches, teachers, peers, all kinds of different people.
I think it's just so big. You know those things that are so big that we forget about it?
Mhm.
Because it's literally right in front of us
Yeah.
every single waking moment of our lives. That trust is the foundation of every relationship. That you
Yeah.
have to trust somebody. And if trust is eroded, or you're coming to the relationship lacking trust for whatever reason, maybe you've been hurt or something and you don't have that trust, that's really destructive.
Yeah.
You know? Or if you build trust over an extended period of time and then someone, you know, erodes it by their actions, you know, dishonesty or whatever it is,
Yeah.
it's really destructive.
It's hard to gain trust, it's easy to lose it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And it's
Yeah.
a process.
yeah.
I think like even rebuilding that trust, it's a very delicate situation, especially when someone has wronged you in the past. And I feel like it's a lot of effort on behalf of both of the individuals in the relationship and just rebuilding that. And I think you have to, it takes even more effort than it did originally because you kind of have to take into account more so who this person is and what are they doing to kind of remedy their actions in the past and are they changed, and you really have to tap into who they are and how it's different than the person who's wronged you in the past.
Definitely. I feel like you can look at trust and you can look at betrayal, two very different categories, two different topics, but so closely related because trust, it takes a lot, like you said, to build trust and very easy to lose it, but that's like something you build almost like over time, but like pretty soon. You kind of like when you meet somebody off the jump, it's like you have a trust in them that they are going to act a certain way in social settings, and you're gonna like be able to rely on them on certain things. And I think that's a big thing. A lot of people have trust in so many people, and then betrayal comes in like so hard. That's breaking someone's trust. That's betraying them to the fullest extent. Is like how can we get that back? And that's like sometimes you can't after betrayal, which is the hardest thing. But I think being able to recognize that people make mistakes, people struggle. There's all kinds of different things that go into why somebody does something is like huge to realize, and trying to have that perspective on things, be able to see that maybe somebody betrayed you, but also why did they betray you? What motivated them to do whatever they did, or what caused that betrayal, and how can you move forward to try and fix and rebuild that trust with that person?
Yeah, that's a good point, because you can repair.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it takes a lot of work, and sometimes maybe that person isn't willing to do it. Or sometimes, I think maybe based on our modern world, that there's that aversion to maybe having that face-to-face conversation. But
Things can get so misconstrued.
they
over
can,
text.
they can.
Yeah,
Because you
another
don't know the
topic.
tone, you
Yeah.
don't know.
Another topic in here.
The impact of technology on relationships.
Yeah.
Right there.
We're have to punt this to another.
Yeah.
Another
Yeah.
part, yeah, right. Another
So, I mean, I think in like coaching, the world of coaching, you know, because you all work with students. I mean, so do I. I mean, we're in the world of athletics, and
Yeah.
athletes need to have the trust of their coach and vice versa, and the belief and the faith in them. Yeah, these are great topics for future podcasts.
I think even to backtrack, trust comes with perseverance.
Mhm.
Are you willing to persevere through those little moments where you can have an out? where there's a break in trust? Does that lead to that dishonesty, or do you persevere through that obstacle too? And I think we face it all the time, is persevering through that initial wall that you face, and then realizing that it takes a little bit of patience and you working with each other to kind of continue to build that. But
And people get hurt. You're gonna get hurt.
yeah,
People get. I
it
mean,
happens.
being alive is someone's gonna betray your trust. Someone's gonna hurt you. Like it, you can't avoid it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
part of the human experience. So
Embracing
like,
that.
like what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with it?
Yeah.
You know?
Right. They
I have a
will
great
persevere.
example. Shout out to Coach Rob.
Coach Rob Bolton.
Yes, because from a student athlete perspective, recruiting is intimidating, and so I went on a recruiting trip, and I actually heard the coach. You already know.
Yeah.
I heard the coach like talking poorly about me before I even got into the
Coach from
office.
some other
No,
team.
but
Some
yeah,
other
some
team,
other-
and so I then was like, well, I'm not going here, and so I messaged Coach Rob, and I was like, hey, Shippensburg looks really great, and I came in and I told him what happened, and then, you know, a few months in, he was like, I let him know that you know, or you heard him talking,
Yes.
and so for me, I was like, oh my gosh, but again, it reinforced like my feelings about it, because he like was very regretful about it, but Rob wasn't done there. So I get, you know, that game was always going to be the game that I was going out there and performing as best I could. And then I graduate and I go to help Rob coach a summer camp, and about 10 minutes before someone arrives, he says, hey, just so you know, you're going to be coaching with this coach now. And it be, you know, power dynamic and stuff too, being fresh out of college, I was a little concerned, and he actually made like a formal apology in front of like everyone in that space.
Wow.
But I mean, my trust was broken going into like my
Wow.
experience going to be a student athlete, and like this is how coaches, you know, navigate those things. And so one, trying to build trust then with Rob, that, you know, I'm not going to have these negative things talked about, but then also giving me the opportunity to face it head on. And you know, I don't know that things would have gone differently if I would have had the choice to coach with other coach later on.
That's powerful.
So,
That's
yeah.
really
Sharing
admirable on
itself,
behalf
yeah.
of both of you. Or like initially you deciding, nope, I'm not gonna have anything to do with him. Like that's just like recognizing that boundary in yourself, because you could have been like, you know, if you didn't maybe have that trust in yourself, you could have been like, well, I deserved it, but you didn't, and that's really admirable. And then later, him being able to own up to it and apologize, that's a pretty full circle moment.
Shout out Rob for even providing that opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
At the time, you know.
That's him pouring into you. Yeah.
I was
Not
thinking about
necessarily.
like how you made your college choice based on that, like
Yeah.
a huge
Oh,
life
yeah.
decision,
Yeah.
which set the arc of it, and here you are sitting today.
Yeah.
So you probably wouldn't be sitting in that chair
No.
if you hadn't heard
Mhm.
him saying that. Isn't
Yeah.
that wild?
I
And
know,
then he did
and-
apologize. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a happy ending, but it's an interesting
sounds
ending.
good.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, and I, you know,
It's
And
not,
I-
it's not
I
a
would not
terrible
have-
ending.
Yeah.
done or taken the steps to, you know, I probably would still be pretty resentful about it now, but you know, that whole apology and growth that we all talk about, and betrayal, like all of that,
Trust,
you
betrayal,
know.
perseverance is all
All in that one answer,
right,
yeah.
in that one
Yeah,
story.
But that, you know,
Definitely.
and the time, you know, reflecting now, it's like, yes, but in the time,
Mm.
you know, there was definitely some betrayal, broken trust and stuff,
Mm.
and then, you know, you kind of have to face it and
Mm.
move from that, or that could have deterred, you know, athletics. I could have not
Mm.
even played soccer based off of that.
Yeah, or went into social work.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of
That's true.
what ifs, yeah.
And I mean, you couldn't really respect the man, you know, like if he says that about you, like how could you go to that school and play for him and have any
Yeah,
respect
right.
for him?
And listen, again,
Yeah.
mom coming in the ear saying, you just get through this visit, and because we didn't say anything, so that was before the visit even started, so we got through the visit, and she
Wow.
was like, you got this is not, not it, and we don't have to look back, and then, emailed my good buddy now, Rob, and here we are, yeah.
I also think kind of how vulnerable you are at the time. Like when you're
Yeah.
like trying to find a school, you're putting yourself out there, you're essentially getting evaluated, and,
Mhm.
and someone's going to make a decision if they want you or not.
Yeah.
And that was
That's-
before you even met him too, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
exactly.
shows how quick that trust can be broken,
Yeah.
and how much of an impact and how serious that actually is. Because like, some people think they're just talking or they're just talking behind closed doors and it's whatever. But like those types of things are the things that like everybody feels so deeply about. Everything that you say has so much weight on it without even knowing it sometimes. So like that trust can be broken in an instant, and like it can change your whole life path even just like that, just by one little situation. So.
I was already sold on at school and everything, and it was wild because the vent to the bathroom is right beside the office. So I'm in the bathroom with my mom, and we can hear through the vents.
Wow.
It's like a movie.
Wow.
Pretty wild.
It's like a
Yeah,
movie.
right.
It's like a movie.
You're right. Wow.
Pretty, yeah.
So you and your mom both heard it?
Oh
at
yeah,
this-
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
your
It
mom
was like
right
the
there with
women's
you?
bathroom was right beside, and
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
You know,
That
you're
is
getting into
very
it, and I was
interesting.
sold. I was like, this is
Right.
where it's at. You know, you have friends that's going in high school, your friends are going somewhere, and it's like, that's what it is. And then it shifted all in, you know, one conversation. So.
I hope it helped him. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I hope it helped him realize his power and that his words impact people.
Because didn't he say it out loud too, right?
Mhm.
The apology.
Well, he had sent a message to Rob, and again, this is just whatever it is, what it is. But he said like it was like one of the biggest mistakes he had made.
Yeah.
So that made me feel good too,
Yeah.
because it was valid. I was like, maybe I'm not good, you know, like you're
Well,
not
he was
good.
wrong.
And so, and you
Not
know,
a-
but
not a
hearing
good-
that,
not a
well,
good
he was
judge of
wrong.
talent.
it's like maybe I'm not good. And so then, you know, and Rob showed me the text because I was like, no, stop saying that stuff. But he had texted, and I was like, it was one of the biggest mistakes I made as, you know, a college coach. So I guess, you know, he grew as much as I did too from that experience. So.
Well, I appreciate ChatGPT
Yeah,
for
shout out.
allowing us to have this
Yeah,
story.
just
Yeah.
vulnerability.
Right. That just shows how wild of a path it can take you down, and what it can do, and we can do together by just using ChatGPT in an appropriate manner and using it to facilitate conversation.
Full transparency.
Yeah.
Full
Yeah.
transparency.
Within the
Right.
guidelines.
Yes.
Right.
We are not sponsored by
No.
ChatGPT.
We're not
This is
affiliated.
quite the conversation starter.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Well, I think we should keep it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's keep this.
Sounds
I
fun.
like it.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Definitely.
Well, this has been a really incredible conversation today, I think.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of really hard-hitting topics, and yeah, it's been great to combine
didn't
all
have
of our
one moo.
experiences.
No.
Yeah.
We
you
got
gotta
one
move in.
moo. You
Yeah,
gotta
that
perfect
one
your
bit, yeah.
mooing.
Post production,
Yeah.
whatever you call
We'll
it.
dub it in post, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we should make all the guests, you know, move.
Moo.
Oh,
no.
yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, you
maybe
started
not.
with that too.
It's like a thing you have to do. Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Well, we
Yeah.
thank you very much for joining us on the first installment of the Cow Podcast, and stay tuned. We look forward to speaking with you guys soon
Yeah.
and hanging out with you. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Oh my gosh, I really want people to have the moo.
I know, we gotta go like at a certain